Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Real Heroes Show. Cory with you here in this video, and the fever pitch for Spider-Man No Way Home is really hitting an all-time high. I like to do 4K Blu-ray reviews. I love Spider-Man. I need an excuse to watch the rest of them. So, between now and December 17th, when No Way Home releases in theaters, I'm going to review every single Spider-Man film that I have on 4K Blu-ray, which includes all three Tobey Maguire films, both Andrew Garfield films, the two Tom Holland films that we have so far, as well as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the animated film. Depending on if anything crazy happens with Venom Let There Be Carnage, might do a review of the first Venom film on 4K Blu-ray too. But for today's video, we are starting with the originals. So, Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi trilogy, near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, especially mine. We'll get into that in just a moment. These are kind of hard to find on 4K Blu-ray. They don't come separately. You have to buy them in this set that Sony put out, which is this interesting flip book looking fella. It's got a 4K disc and a Blu-ray of all three films. There's one special features disc as well. And if you look in the front here, it's kind of, the pages are kind of stiff, but it's a little pamphlet and a little booklet about the making of all three films, which is pretty cool if you're a collector. So again, this does include Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3. In this video in particular, we are going to be discussing the first Spider-Man. Before I get started, we are really interested in people subscribing to this channel and liking our videos. That being said, if this video gets 25 likes in the first 24 hours, or if 10 new people subscribe to the channel in the first 24 hours after this video goes live, I will record Spider-Man 2 review in a Spider-Man mask. I will buy a Spider-Man mask, and I will review the video as such. Depending on how that goes, if the next one does better, I'll buy a Venom mask, and I'll record the review in my best Venom impersonation voice. So this is on you, Internet. If you guys can get us to that point, you might see me in a Spider-Man mask. You might see me in a Venom mask doing my best Tom Hardy impersonation. Just saying, putting it out there. If you don't like it, toss it right back. Don't like the videos. Anyway, so to get into the tech specs for this first Spider-Man film from Sam Raimi all the way back in 2002. This has a native 4K DI. Sony actually did a regular Blu-ray set that was sourced from a 4K remaster a few years before these came out, and these are the proper 4K versions of that that are released on the newer format. It's traditional HDR, so no Dolby Vision. However, it is in a 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio, which is, to my knowledge, the only Spider-Man film that does that. So when you pop this disc into your player and you're watching it on your television, it's going to fill up your whole screen. There is no letterboxing or pillar boxing whatsoever. So you're getting, older than high school age Joe Manganiello in full glorious television frame. And really, the whole cast is older than high school, and it's one of the things that makes me chuckle about this film. But yeah, and then for the audio, we have a Dolby Atmos soundtrack, which is pretty cool. Considering this film is from 2002, they didn't have to do that. They had a really nice 5.1 track that was on all the Blu-ray discs and the digital releases, but Sony went in, they converted to Atmos. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but they do some pretty cool stuff. So video-wise, this film is the oldest of the Spider-Man films. It looks very grainy. It's got a very filmic look. It was shot on 35 millimeter, and it really shows. There's some of the scenes in particular, especially like the low lit stuff. So the best example I think in the film is the fight in the rain that leads to the upside down kiss between Peter and MJ with the mask half off. it almost looks entirely different from the rest of the film because it's so grainy. But I suppose that they didn't really have the tech to keep things super duper clean, like say the Andrew Garfield or the Tom Holland films. So they went with it. They embrace it, and I think it looks cool. It doesn't distract me from anything. Actually, it gives me good memories. Because this is the first comic book movie I ever saw in theaters. Young freshman in high school, Cory went to go see something else with a friend that I don't even remember what that film was. And then after it, we said, we should watch that Spider-Man movie too. And I had to go to a payphone and call my parents to make sure it was okay to be home a couple hours later to go see a second movie that night. I didn't even want to see it. I thought it was going to be dumb. Went to go see it. It blew my mind. It was a nexus point in my life, to steal a phrase from the newer Marvel stuff. Put me on the path I'm on today, and here I am talking to a camera alone in my office at 11:30 at night on a Thursday, discussing the audio and video quality of a 4K Blu-ray disc. All right, so being said, the grain, whatever, if you don't like grain, you're not gonna like this. If you like filmic look, you're gonna be over the moon for it. That being said, textures in this film, whether it's Spider-Man's suit, some of the gothic buildings you see in New York, facial details, pores, hair, it's so detailed. It's unreal what these film negatives have in them. And it's really beautiful. It's the best way I've ever seen the movie. Thinking back to seeing it in the theaters, I don't think it was as good as it is now. These are really unbelievable looking, given their age, and it's a testament to the quality of the 4K format. So super excited there. There's one scene all the way at the end. Spoilers: Norman Osborn dies. He takes a glider to the dick. At his funeral, MJ walks up to Peter and she puts her hand on his face, and on her thumb there's like a little strand of fabric from her gloves, and you can see it clear as day. And like, I'd never seen that before until I watched it on the disc, and I thought that was really cool. Last thing, it's a movie for 2002. The dynamic range is not going to be as wide as stuff that today's newer cameras capture. That being said, there are some very bright highlights in this movie. One example is when Peter passes out in his room after getting bit by the spider for the first time. There's some flashes, almost like strobes. They're blinding. They give you the squints. So pretty cool stuff there. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. As a major fan of this movie, and as someone who has a special place in my heart for it, I'm really happy that the video looks as good as it does. For me, 8 out of 10, very much enjoy it. So let's get into audio. Audio is presented in Dolby Atmos, and this is too cool. From the minute the opening credits start, Danny Elfman's score just swells upward. You get that great Spider-Man melody that we've associated with those pictures, and hopefully we see some Tobey in No Way Home. Hopefully we hear this music along with him showing up in what is a multiversal film. We'll certainly see. Anytime the spider sense happens, you get great surround activity. It's not afraid to reach down into the depths and hit you with some bass too on that, which is really awesome. When he gets bit by the spider on the school field trip, when the bite happens, you can feel the bass. They really engage the subwoofers there, which is really awesome. There's a lot of dynamic range, and it's a relatively loud mix. Sony's 4K discs tend to be that way. Just for comparison's sake, when I watched and reviewed Black Widow earlier this week, I had to crank my receiver up to -10 dB to get a really, rumble in your chest type feeling out of that film. With this one, I listened at -20 dB, and it felt almost as loud. I felt like the highs were higher, the lows were lower. It wasn't afraid to reach for the bass. So really enjoy the presentation from Sony on this. Very, very happy with the way it came out. There's a lot of fine textural detail in the sound. When that far too young for high school Joe Manganiello is fighting Peter, and he gets knocked down, and the lunch tray falls on him, and the pudding splats on him. You can hear it and you can feel it, and it sounds right. It's done really well, and I'm not sure any other presentation of this film really gets that across. You know, the discs are very, very high fidelity. The audio codec is great. It's truly awesome. New York City feels extremely alive. Anytime there's an establishing shot on a street corner, great surround activity. You've got bicycles, taxi cabs, the breeze blowing through, papers and debris flying around the soundstage. Just really cool stuff there. New York is one of the characters of these films to me, and it really plays a great part, and the audio really gets that across. There's some cool uses of the height effects in this, which older films, it's easy to convert to Atmos and say, yeah, it's in Atmos, and then you don't really get a whole lot from it. You know, even when I reviewed Black Widow, which is a brand new movie, I mentioned getting on a stepladder and not hearing anything come out of my height channels during a high-octane action sequence. Cool that in this movie, you get some neat stuff. So when Peter's tracking down Ben's killer early in the movie, they get into one of the old buildings, and the killer is walking through, and Peter's going across the ceiling. You can hear it in the height channels, which I really appreciated. The other great one, which I think was my favorite height effect in the whole film, when Norman Osborn realizes that he's talking to himself and that he's essentially a split personality between Norman and the Green Goblin. They really use the height effects in concert with the surrounds to really simulate that feeling of when Norman is talking to himself. You get some of it from up high, you get some of it from behind you, some of it from the front soundstage. It's very, very convincing, and it makes that reveal when he looks in the mirror, sees himself, and has a conversation with himself. Really drives that whole thing home. So great soundtrack for me, great music, great effects. It doesn't sound quite like a brand new movie. You know, I popped on one of the newer Spider-Man films after watching this just to compare the fidelity of the audio, and obviously the new ones are a little more robust, a little bit more clean, but for a 2002 film, really holds its own. Super happy with the way it came out. So gonna give this one an 8.5 out of 10 on the audio. And then lastly, would I recommend this disc to someone? Tricky, because you can't buy it on its own. You have to buy it in the set here. And like I mentioned, I had to kind of hunt this down. I found it on Amazon a couple months back. I probably paid too much money for it. I don't even want to say how much, but they are films that are important to me, especially the first two. The third one, maybe not so much, but we'll get to that one in a different video. So I would say absolutely. It's a definite recommend for me. But if you're not really a fan of comic book movies, or you don't like the zaniness of Sam Raimi or the way that Tobey Maguire plays the character, then maybe it's not for you. But for me, I would say definitely check it out. It's the best way to watch this film, considering that it's almost 20 years old. It'll be 20 years old next year, and it still looks great and sounds great on the 4K Blu-ray disc. So that is going to wrap it up for this video. Don't forget, between now and December 17th, I will be reviewing Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse on 4K Blu-ray. I have a lot of work in front of me. Again, please make sure to like this video and subscribe. Like I said before, if we get 25 likes in the first 24 hours or 10 new subscribers, I will purchase a Spider-Man mask. I don't have one already. This will be a girlfriend looks at me weird and says, why did you order this when it comes in the mail, sort of thing. And I'll say, I promised my followers that I would record a video wearing a Spider-Man mask. So definitely like the video, definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, turn on those notifications and share with your friends. Would also love to hear your thoughts. Drop us a comment below, let us know what you think. Have you seen this in 4K? Did you see it in the theater? Were you blown away by it as a teenager like I was? Drop us a comment and let us know. I will respond to every comment that comes through. We'll be back next week. We'll have some Ted Lasso, some Apple TV C review coming in from Nick, Marvel's What If, Star Wars Visions comes out next week, and then Foundation and Midnight Mass both hit on Friday of next week as well. So things are starting to pop off in a big way. We're really excited to cover all of it. So please stay tuned for all of that and so much more. Until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.